Good evening, and welcome to Election Night 2026. Tonight, the Trump administration faces its biggest challenge yet. With the Senate and House both up tonight, will the Republicans be able to maintain their trifecta, or will Democrats put a stop to Republicans' legislative agenda? We'll have to see tonight. Looking at Donald Trump's approval rating, according to the latest CNN poll, he is sitting at a 45% approval rating, with the majority of the nation disapproving of the administration. Now looking at the generic ballot, Democrats are ahead by exactly 4%, which is around similar to the national environment we saw in 2020, and around half the size of the blue environment we saw in 2018, where here it is D+4, and then it was D+9. It is now 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and we have poll closings in the states of Indiana, Kentucky, Georgia, Virginia, South Carolina, and Vermont, and we already have some projections to make. We can project that Andy Barr will win his first term to the United States Senate, defeating Pamela Stevenson, no surprise here, and we have a couple key race alerts to make. In Virginia, it is currently too early to call. Mark Warner is trying to go for his next term in office, and just to play it safe here, although he has the lead, we will have to see how further results play out. In Georgia, this is one of the most closely watched races in the entire nation. Jon Ossoff is fighting for a second term in office, and it is currently too early to call. And in South Carolina, much like in Virginia, we're expecting this to go Lindsey Graham's way, but just to play it safe to see how early results come in, we are marking it as too early to call for now. Looking at the balance of power in the Senate, Democrats are at 34 seats, Republicans are at 32, with 34 seats remaining. Republicans need 50 seats to maintain control of the chamber. Democrats need 51 to flip it, because Vice President J.D. Vance is a Republican. And looking at the House, Democrats currently have 11 seats, Republicans have 20, with 404 remaining, and 218 are needed for a majority. It is now 7:30 on the East Coast, and we have poll closings in the states of Ohio, West Virginia, and North Carolina, and we have a projection to make. Out of West Virginia, Shelley Moore Capito will win re-election to the United States Senate, no surprise here, defeating Zach Shrewsbury. And out of Ohio's 9th, Rob McCulley will defeat Holla Hicks Hudson. This was Marcy Kaptur's old House district before she was drawn out, where she later retired, and it looks like he will be the next representative from here, and it is a pickup for Republicans. We now have a couple key race alerts to make. Out of Ohio, this is a race that has been closely watched. Sherrod Brown is fighting to make his way back into the Senate, going against former Lieutenant Governor Jon Husted, who is currently occupying J.D. Vance's seat after J.D. Vance left the seat vacant to become vice president. It is currently too early to call. And out of North Carolina, this is quite possibly the most closely watched race in the entire country. Former Governor Roy Cooper is trying to be elected to the Senate, and he is facing off against RNC Chair Michael Whatley. It is too early to call. And out of Georgia, we now have an update. It is now too close to call. We have some results in, with 25% in. Jon Ossoff has a 16-point lead, although this is largely just because most of the areas that I've reported so far are in Metro Atlanta, and as we get more rural results, it is expected that Mike Collins will be able to make up a lot of that gap. Will it be enough to flip the race? We will just have to see. And looking at the balance of power, Democrats are at 34 seats, Republicans are now at 33, with 33 seats remaining. And out of the House, Democrats are at 16 seats, Republicans are at 37, with one pickup, with 382 seats remaining. It is now 7:58 on the East Coast, and we have poll closings in the states of Alabama, Connecticut, Delaware, Washington, D.C., Florida, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Missouri, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Tennessee, and we have a ton of projections to make. This is the largest poll closing of the night. We can project that Mark Warner will win re-election, defeating Kim Farrington and winning by what looks like a 12% margin. In Delaware, Chris Coons will defeat William Morris and win another term in office, no surprise here. Same thing in Massachusetts, Ed Markey, who survived a competitive primary over the summer, will defeat John Deaton and win re-election. And out of Rhode Island, another no surprise win, Jack Reed will defeat Michael Chippendale and be re-elected to the United States Senate. And out of Illinois, Krishnamoorthy will defeat Casey Shibleck and win his first term to the United States Senate after being in a competitive primary with the Lieutenant Governor of Illinois over the summer. Out of Alabama, Barry Moore will defeat Kyle Sweetster and win his first term to the United States Senate, replacing Tommy Tuberville, who is currently running for governor. Out of Tennessee, Bill Hagerty will defeat Bo Mitchell and win another term in the Senate. And out of Mississippi, Cindy Hyde-Smith will defeat Scott Collum and Ty Pinkins and win another term to the United States Senate. And out of Oklahoma, Markwayne Mullin had a somewhat competitive primary over the summer, and he will defeat Nikilia Thomas and be reelected to the United States Senate. He was first elected in 2022. We now have a couple key race alerts to make. Out of Florida, it is currently too early to call between Trump whistleblower Alexander Vindman and current Senator Ashley Moody, who is fighting for her first full term in office after filling up Marco Rubio's seat in 2025. Out of New Hampshire, this is a very closely watched race from both parties. Chris Pappas is fighting against Scott Brown to replace Jeanne Shaheen, both very strong candidates in their own rights, and it is currently too early to call. Out of New Jersey, a state that is trending right very fast, Cory Booker is fighting for another term in office against Ed Durr, and it is currently too early to call. And out of Maine, one of the closest races in the entire country, current Senator Susan Collins is fighting for another term in office and is going against Maine Speaker of the House, Ryan Fecteau. It is too early to call. And out of North Carolina, we now have an update. It is now too close to call. We have some results in with 22% of the vote in. Roy Cooper is leading Michael Whatley, although this is largely just because most of the areas that have reported so far are from inner city North Carolina. Looking at the balance of power, Democrats are at 39 seats, Republicans are at 37, with 24 seats remaining. And in the House, Democrats are at 52 seats, Republicans are at 83 with one pickup, with exactly 300 seats remaining. It is now 8:30, and we have poll closings in the state of Arkansas, and we have a projection to make. We can project that Tom Cotton will win re-election and defeat Dan Whitfield. No surprise here. We also have a couple key race alerts to make. Out of Georgia, it is still too close to call. We have some results in. 35% of the vote is in, and John Ossoff's lead has shrunk to only around 14 points as more rural areas have come in. And looking at the Senate balance of power right now, Democrats are still at 39 seats, Republicans are at 38 now, with 23 seats remaining. And out of the House, Democrats are at 94, Republicans have crossed the 100-seat threshold and are now at 119 with one pickup. 222 seats remain. And it is now 8:59 p.m. on the East Coast, and we have tons of poll closings right now. We have poll closings in Arizona, Colorado, Kansas, Louisiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Mexico, New York, North Dakota, South Dakota, Texas, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. And we have a couple projections to make. Out of Colorado, we can project that John Hickenlooper will defeat Janak Joshi and win another term in office. He was first elected in 2020, and Colorado has been quickly trending to the left. Out of New Jersey, we can project that Cory Booker will defeat Ed Durr by around 14 points and win another term in office. Out of South Carolina, we can project that Lindsey Graham will defeat Annie Andrews expectedly by around 14 points and will win another term in office. And out of Florida, Ashley Moody will defeat Alexander Vindman, further marking the state's rightward shift, and win by a very similar margin to Lindsey Graham and win by around 14 to 13 points. Out of Kansas, Roger Marshall will defeat Christy Davids and win another term in office, no surprise here. And John Fleming, who primaried Bill Cassidy over the summer, will defeat Royce Duplessis and win his first term in office. In South Dakota, Mike Rounds will be reelected and defeat Julian Baudion and win another term in office. And in Wyoming, Cynthia Loomis will defeat Greg Haas and win another term in office. In Ohio's 13th Congressional District, Kevin Coughlin will defeat Amelia Sykes and be the next representative from here. This is a pickup for Republicans. Amelia Sykes was drawn into a more Republican district in 2025 after Ohio was forced to redraw their maps, and it appears that she will now lose re-election to Kevin Coughlin. And out of Texas's 9th, all of these new Texas flips are because of their redraw that happened in 2025. Briscoe Kane will defeat Alma Allen and flip Texas's 9th Congressional District. Out of Texas's 32nd, Katrina Pearson, who worked for the Trump campaign in 2016, will defeat Zane Chiato and flip Texas's 32nd Congressional District. And out of Texas's 35th, John Lujan will defeat Ray Lopez and win his first term in the House. We now have a couple key race alerts to make. Out of Nebraska, a very interesting race. Independent Dan Osborne is going against Pete Ricketts. Dan Osborne lost by a shockingly small margin in 2024, and Pete Ricketts was the former governor of Nebraska, turned now senator, and they are now facing off, and it is currently too early to call. Out of New Mexico, Ben Ray Lujan is going against J.C. Block and fighting for another term in office, and it is currently too early to call. And out of Texas, Colin Allred, who lost to Ted Cruz in 2024, is facing off against controversial Republican nominee Ken Paxton, who is the former Attorney General of Texas, and it is currently too early to call. And out of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan, the current Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, is facing off against very controversial Republican nominee Royce White, and it is currently too early to call. And out of Michigan, another very, very, very closely watched race. Haley Stevens is facing off against former Republican Senate nominee Mike Rogers, and it is currently too early to call. And out of Maine, we now have an update. It is now too close to call, and Susan Collins is now leading by a very large margin with 22% of the vote in, largely because a lot of the vote that's coming in right now is from the more rural areas. And out of Ohio, it is now too close to call as well. And Sherrod Brown was leading for a little while there, but John Husted has now taken the lead as more rural areas have come in. And with 65% of the vote in, he has now taken the lead against Sherrod Brown, giving him the edge in this race. And looking at the Senate balance of power, Democrats are now at 41 seats, Republicans are at 44, with 15 seats remaining. And out of the House, Democrats are at 118 seats, Republicans are at 168 with 5 pickups, and there are 149 seats remaining. It is now 10 p.m. on the East Coast, and we have poll closings in the states of Iowa, Montana, Nevada, and Utah, and we have a couple projections to make. Out of Montana, Steve Daines will be reelected, defeating Riley Neal, and he will win another term in the Senate. And out of Minnesota, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan will defeat Royce White. This is very early for a call, largely just because Royce White is such a controversial candidate. She will defeat him by around 12 points, and it looks like she will be elected to the Senate in Minnesota. Out of Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District, John Kavanaugh will defeat Brett Lindstrom, replacing Don Bacon, who retired last year. This is a flip for Democrats. John Kavanaugh's father actually served in this seat, and it looks like he will win by approximately 8 points. And out of Pennsylvania's 10th Congressional District, Janelle Stolson will defeat underperformer Scott Perry, flipping this district from red to blue, and she will win by around 3.5 points. And out of Utah's 4th, a court-drawn district in Salt Lake City, Ben McAdams will defeat Burgess Owens and win a term in the House of Representatives. This is a pickup for Democrats. And we have a couple key race alerts to show you. Out of Iowa, between Zach Walz and Ashley Hinson, it is currently too early to call. Although it is expected to go Ashley Hinson's way, this could go either way for now. It is too early to call. And out of North Carolina, we currently have an update. It is still too close to call, but we have some results in. Roy Cooper's lead has shrunk as we've gotten more results from rural North Carolina, and Michael Watley's deficit has shrunk, and he is now only behind by around 8 points. We'll have to see if that'll be enough for him to take the lead with 74% of the vote in. And out of Michigan, it is now too close to call between Haley Stevens and Mike Rogers. Mike Rogers is leading by a lot, as for now, only really rural areas have reported alongside, some urban areas, but the suburbs, which tend to lean Democrat in Michigan, haven't reported just yet with only 68% of the vote in. But we'll have to see if this is enough for Mike Rogers to hold the lead, or if Haley Stevens will take the lead in a little bit. And looking at the balance of power, Democrats are at 41 seats, Republicans are at 45, with 15 seats remaining. Republicans are 5 seats away from holding the majority. And in the House, Democrats are at 134 seats with 3 pickups now, and Republicans are at 187, still with 5 pickups with 114 seats remaining. It is now 10:58 p.m. on the East Coast, and we have poll closings on the West Coast. We have poll closings in California, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, and we have a couple projections to make. In New Hampshire, we can project that Chris Pappas will defeat Scott Brown and be elected to the United States Senate, replacing Jeanne Shaheen. He will win by approximately 6.5 points, a fairly strong showing for going against such a good candidate in Scott Brown, and he has been elected to the United States Senate. Out of New Mexico, Ben Marie Lujan will defeat J.C. Block. Not too much of a surprise here. It appears he will win by around 10 points, a pretty strong showing, much better than he did in 2020. And out of Oregon, Jeff Merkley will be reelected, defeating Tim Skelton. And out of Nebraska, we can project that Pete Ricketts will defeat Dan Osborne and will win his first full term to the United States Senate. It appears Dan Osborne is doing considerably worse than he did in 2024. And out of Ohio, we can project that John Husted will defeat Sherrod Brown, and it looks like he's going to win by around 4 points, doing a bit better than Bernie Moreno did against Sherrod Brown in 2024. A fairly strong showing for Sherrod Brown, but not enough. John Husted will be elected to his first full term in the United States Senate. And out of Idaho, Jim Risch will be reelected to the United States Senate, defeating David Roth. No surprise here. And out of Pennsylvania's 7th Congressional District, Lamont McClure will defeat Ryan McKenzie, a district that flipped Republican in 2024, is now flipping back to Democratic in 2026. Democrats appear to win this race by around 2 points. And we now have a couple key race alerts to make. Out of Georgia, it is still too close to call, but we have some more results in. Mike Collins has taken the lead as more rural areas have reported. Jon Ossoff is now behind. However, silver lining for Democrats is that a lot of these suburban areas in Georgia have not reported just yet. So we'll have to see if what happened to Joe Biden in 2020 will happen to Jon Ossoff in 2026. And he does take the lead as these more suburban areas start to report. And looking at the balance of power in the United States Senate, Democrats are now at 45 seats. Republicans are 2 seats away from holding the majority at 48, with 7 seats remaining. And out of the House, Democrats are at 181 seats with 4 pickups. Republicans are at 202. They have crossed the 200 threshold with 5 pickups, with 52 seats remaining. It is now 11:59 on the East Coast, almost 12, and we have a poll closing happening in Hawaii, and we have a major projection to make. We can project that Roy Cooper will defeat Michael Whatley in North Carolina and be elected to the United States Senate. This is a major win for Democrats, a flip, and it is the first time that North Carolina has elected a Democrat to federal office since 2008. It appears Roy Cooper will win this by around 2 points, and it is an amazing showing for Democrats, as this is a major feat in North Carolina politics, and it is great for Democrats' hopes in flipping the Senate tonight or in 2028, as they are flipping a seat and they are making a pickup in the Senate. And out of Iowa, we can project that Ashley Hinson will defeat Zach Walz and win her first term to the United States Senate, and will win by around 8 points, replacing Joni Ernst. And out of Iowa's first congressional district, a bit of a silver lining for Iowa Democrats, Christina Bonahan will defeat unpopular incumbent Marionette Millimeeks, a constant underperformer. It appears she will win by around 3 points. This is a flip for Democrats. And we now have a key race alert. Out of Georgia, it is still too close to call, but we have some more results in. As suburbs have started to report, Jon Ossoff has taken the lead back from Mike Collins and is now leading by 0.3% of the vote, and it appears he now has the edge to win his race. And out of Michigan, it is still too close to call. But we have some updates. As more suburbs have reported, Haley Stevens has made this race a lot closer as more of the vote has reported. And people are starting to think that she might take the lead as more votes start to report, but we will still have to see about that. Looking at the balance of power in the Senate, Democrats are now at 46 seats with 1 pickup. Republicans are 1 seat away from holding their majority with 5 seats remaining, meaning Democrats would need to win every single race still outstanding to flip the Senate, so their hopes look a lot more unlikely. And out of the House, Democrats are now at 199 seats with 5 pickups. Republicans are at 207 with also 5 pickups and 29 seats remaining. It is now 12:58 a.m. on the East Coast, and we have a poll closing happening in Alaska at 1 a.m., and we have a major projection to make. We can project that Republicans will win control of the United States Senate. They will hold on to it after they first flipped it in 2024. They will hold on to control. This is because Ken Paxton has been projected to defeat Colin Allred. However, we'll go over that later, because we can also project that Jon Ossoff will defeat Mike Collins and win his second term to the United States Senate. It looks like he will defeat him by around 3 points. This is a very strong showing, further showing how Georgia is trending to the left as a state, and he has performed very well here. And out of Colorado, we can project that Manny Rutinel will flip the seat back to blue after it flipped red in 2024 and defeat Gabe Evans by around 2-1 points. And out of Virginia's 2nd congressional district, we can project that Pamela Northam will defeat Jen Kiggins, flipping the seat from red to blue after it first flipped red in 2022. It is a very close race, but we can project that she will win, winning by less than a point. And out of Wisconsin's 3rd congressional district, we have another flip. Rebecca Cook will defeat unpopular Republican incumbent Derek Van Orden. This is a very strong Trump district. However, she has managed to flip it with her grassroots support and using Derek Van Orden's unpopularity as her strength. And she has managed to win this race by around 2 points. And this is the seat that decided the Senate. Ken Paxton will defeat Colin Allred by around 5 points. Although he is a very unpopular candidate, Texas has proven itself to just be too red, further crushing Democrats' dreams of a blue Texas in the future, and we can project that he will be elected to the United States Senate. And out of Texas' 34th congressional district, Eric Flores will defeat Vicente Gonzalez as a flip for Republicans. This is due to the redistricting that happened in 2025 with Texas' new map, and it has proven that it has just become too red for Vicente Gonzalez to hold on, although the person in his district right next to him, Henry Cuellar, has shown that he is looking to be in a lot better of a spot and that he might hold on. But Vicente Gonzalez will lose by around 4 points. And we now have a couple key race alerts to share with you all. Out of Alaska, it is now too early to call between Tom Begich and Dan Sullivan. It was expected that Mary Peltola might run for this, but instead she chose to run for governor. And out of Maine, it is still too close to call, but we have some more votes in. 82% of the vote is in, and it has gotten much narrower as more city votes have reported, more urban areas have reported, and it looks like it'll just come down to the suburbs. But Ryan Fecteau is right behind Susan Collins. Susan Collins might be able to hold the lead depending on how the further results play out, but we will just have to see. This looking to be much closer than it was in 2020 and an absolute nail-biter. And out of Michigan, it is still too close to call. However, Haley Stevens has taken the lead from Mike Rogers as more of the suburbs have reported. It appears that she now has the edge in this race. Looking at the United States Senate, Republicans have held on to the balance of power there. They have 50 seats, which is enough for a majority with Vice President J.D. Vance. Democrats have 47 seats with 1 pickup, and there are 3 seats remaining. Looking at the House, nobody has won it just yet. Democrats are at 208 seats with 8 pickups. Republicans are at 211 with 6 pickups, and 16 seats are remaining. It is now Wednesday, November 4th, 2026 at 11:38 a.m. on the East Coast, and we have a major projection to make out of Michigan. We can project that Haley Stevens will defeat Mike Rogers, winning her first term to the United States Senate, a fairly unpopular nominee for Democrats who has proven to be kind of unpopular among young people and people of color in Detroit. She still managed to win, with the suburbs carrying her to a victory of around 2 points. Mike Rogers doing considerably worse than he did in 2024 against Elisa Slotkin. And out of Arizona's 6th congressional district, we have a pickup. Joanna Mendoza will defeat Juan Ciscomani and be elected to the United States House. This was a district that Democrats were trying to get for a while, and they finally have done it, with Joanna Mendoza winning this district by around 2 points. And out of Iowa's 3rd congressional district, Jennifer Confrost will defeat Zach Nunn, barely flipping this district from blue to red. Zach Nunn looked like he was going to run for governor for a little bit. He chose to stay in the House to defend this seat, and it has proven to be a futile effort. And we now have a key race alert to make. Out of Maine, it is still too close to call. Almost all of the votes have reported it from the first round, and Ryan Fecteau is still behind by around 1.7 points. However, since Susan Collins has now fallen under a majority of the vote, it appears that maybe the ranked choice voting system will be triggered, and maybe that will be enough to give Ryan Fecteau the edge, as more third-party ballots will have their second and third choices be read, and we will have to see if that is enough for Ryan Fecteau to take the lead. Looking at the balance of power in the Senate, Democrats are now at 48 seats with 1 pickup, so they are now in a better spot than they were in 2024, and Republicans are now at 50 seats. Democrats have 1 pickup, Republicans have none, and there are 2 seats remaining. And looking at the House, Democrats are at 216 seats, 2 seats away from flipping the chamber with 10 pickups. Republicans are at 212 with 6 pickups, and 7 seats are remaining. It is now Thursday, November 12th, 2026 at 4:05 p.m. on the East Coast, and we have a major projection to make both in the House and in Maine. We can project that Democrats will flip control of the House. They lost control in 2022, and it appears they have flipped it back in 2026. We can also project that Ryan Fecteau will defeat Susan Collins in an absolute nail-biter. This is a massive flip for Democrats as the final round votes have been read. Ryan Fecteau has barely managed to take the lead as third-party votes have been reported, and Susan Collins will lose her re-election streak. It appears that polarization has finally caught up to her, and Ryan Fecteau will be the next senator out of Maine. And in Michigan's 7th congressional district, Bridget Brink will barely defeat Tom Barrett. This was a target district for Democrats, and it appears she has barely done it against the Republican who managed to flip this district in 2024. It appears she has flipped it back in 2026. And out of California's 41st congressional district, Brandon Riker will defeat Ken Calvert, a 20-year incumbent. He has finally lost. This was a top Democratic target for a couple years now, and it appears he has finally done it, barely flipping the seat and winning the control for the House for Democrats. And out of Alaska, Dan Sullivan will defeat Tom Begich. Not too much of a surprise here, but it appears he has, and he has won by around 10 points. Looking at control of the Senate, Democrats are at 49 seats, Republicans are at 51. Democrats have flipped 2 seats from where they were in 2024. This is a major win for Democrats and puts them in a good spot to flip control of the Senate in 2028. And out of the House, Democrats have flipped control of the chamber, even with redraws happening in Texas and in Ohio. And they have taken 12 pickups in the House. Republicans have 215 seats with 6 pickups. Democrats have flipped the chamber. This is a major win for them. And thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you like it with the voiceover style, and stay tuned for my next video, which is going to be an alternate history on what if Al Gore won in 2000. It's super interesting. I'm super excited for it, and I think it's going to be pretty good. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day. Bye.